Bertha is good.
All right, so I want to do a little bit of ID work on this engine. Is this engine the original engine for the Camaro behind us? I'm sure it's not. And I'll tell you why I know that. First thing is this. This is definitely a 350 block because this number here is indicative of a 350. It is not, however, indicative of whether it is a 2-bolt main block or a 4-bolt main block. My guess is because this engine's been messed around with, this could possibly be a 4-bolt main block. But that number is just indicative of a small block 350 or a 350. Over on the other side of the block, we have a date code. Now the D is for April and it went in series. January is A, February is B, March is C, April is D, all the way through to the end of the year. 30 is the date that this block was cast in, unfortunately for this engine, 1969. Now if this was a 70, it would be out as well because that would tell us that this engine was produced after the assembly date on the car because the car was put together in February of 1970. So we know right now that we have a problem here with this. I have done the numbers which are on the front of the block and we'll talk about those in a second that lets me know that this is in fact a service block. We don't know about any of the rest of it. A lot of this information I'm giving you guys comes off of nastyz28.com. It's a really great forum and information site for these Camaros back behind me. You should go check them out. Intake manifold, obviously, Holley Dominator. It's not original in any way, shape, or form. These heads could theoretically have been from the original engine on the car. We've got date codes. This one is an A270, which lets us know that it's a January 27th of 1970. Usually on Chevrolet stuff, if the foundry dates are within 4 weeks of the car, it's accepted as possibly being original to the car. That's the easiest thing to pull off on these engines and check out too. The engine information on the back of the block, same thing, it's easy to get to. So I think what we've got here is a set of cylinder heads that could be original to this engine. The one on the passenger side is within a couple of dates of the driver's side of it. This cylinder head is a January 30th of 1970 head. It's got the same engineering number on it, which tells us that we're good to go on that front. So now I'm going to swing this thing around and we're going to talk about the VIN number possibly being on the front of the engine. Swinging is a problem. What do we have here? Well, I know this is not the original engine from the date codes, but I also can come up here to the front and I find a stamping here. If this was original to the car, it would have a portion of the VIN number in the stamping here, but this is a service block. We know that because it is a CE block. CE blocks were typically listed out in a list that I've got that I'll put in the description below with a link that says where these blocks come from. This being a CE, and it's really hard to tell because this thing is 52 years old. This block could have been surfaced any number of times between here and there, and in fact it has been surfaced enough that you can just barely make out what that is, and that is a CE. I looked up CE and CL. CL was typically an earlier block from earlier on in production, and it wouldn't have been used for this particular car. So we know that the CE lets us know that it's a service block. Just know that it's a service block, and that's the number for this particular service block. All right, so what Cam and I want to see on this is what do we have here? What is it that caused this engine to run like crap? I think part of it was the fact that a couple of these rocker arms are so loose that it's not going to run right. So I'm going to throw Cam in here. He's going to grab all the tools and just start pulling this bad boy apart. Let's see what we got.
This is solid lifter, it looks like.
Well, part of our problem could have been the fact that these weren't adjusted at all.
Yep.
When we were messing with it.
Or the lifters failed.
How would we be able to diagnose that?
Pull the cam out.
So we have a solid lifter cam. We're going to pull the one of the lifters out of here so we can show you kind of what to look for when you're looking for a solid lifter. Theoretically.
I'm blowing it all apart.
Are you just going to blow it all apart and
yeah.
we'll go over it? Okay.
Alright, so I got the overhead loose. We are going to be doing more than likely a roller camshaft in this, so these really don't matter as to where they go. The wear pattern doesn't really apply to these. So I'm just taking a look at stuff, seeing if I see anything obviously bad. Yeah, so this has been gone into before at least once, 2 different push rods, or 2 different makes of push rods. They're probably the same length.
Still not what you would do building a high performance engine normally.
Yeah. See if we can get this off. RTV didn't take too well on this. Oh, you have to pull the pan off, that's right. Well, this is fun.
Clean up on aisle 1.
Got a lot of coolant in the oil. Should probably go ahead and I hold this and you get another pan and pull the drain cock.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Because, mess with that 9/16, baby.
Why the oil level's so high?
We hadn't reached oil yet. That's why it's like that.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to bet that problem comes from it sitting outside with the distributor out of it. Oh, yeah. Taco Bell!
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to pull apart.
Definitely Taco Bell. Well, I guess the question becomes, Is it salvageable?
Well, the good news is the crankshaft was submerged in oil.
Yes, that's the good news. Oh, more water. Dang, man. Oh, my goodness. That's a lot of water. I think we're done with that one, buddy. We'll have to roll it over to C.
No, the bottom end will be fine. It hasn't gone through the engine. That's the distributor hole.
Still.
Like I said, the whole bottom half of the engine's submerged in oil. The water lifted it up. Alright, so we got the Exxon Valdez cover off, and despite having all the water in it and so on, this timing chain is cooked as well, so that was definitely an issue. Typically anything more than, I believe it's half an inch of slop on the loose side of the chain is considered bad. That's bad. So next up, I'm going to pull the lifters out, and then we can pull the heads off, roll it, then, well, we don't have to roll it before we pull the cam, but we got to get the lifters out first. So, yeah, options. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the lifters out. I've got a little stacking tray from Harbor Freight here. Not really going to keep these in line. I'm going to try to, but no real need to, because we're not going to be reusing that. So I'm just looking at all the lifter bottoms, feeling for mushroom tips. If the flat tappet wears out or the lifter gives out, it'll curl the edges right where my fingertip is. You typically won't be able to pull it out of the hole. You have to pull the camshaft and knock the lifter down in. But so far, these are good. And these are solid lifter. That one's going to be a pain. But these are a solid lifter. You can see there's no hydraulic cup in there. If there was a hydraulic cup, you'd see little retaining clips in there where it can compress, and a little piston is in there. But solid.
Do you need me to come in there with my tiny fingers?
In a minute. Right, that was too low.
I can come in there with my tiny fingers.
All right, yeah.
We're not putting these in any certain place, right?
No.
There you go, where you're at. Give me the needy knees. Slid back down again. Look okay.
Yeah, they're all fine.
They were spinning like they were supposed to.
Yep, none of them seem flat spotted or wore out. Alright, now we can pull the cam or the heads, whichever.
Let's pull the head so we can take a look at what we got.
Alright. Alright, gonna pull the heads, and I'm just gonna rattle these off on impact because it doesn't really matter. avoid making a mess, I'm going to pull the block through.
That's got cool in it. That's a good sound.
That's not good.
Well, it looks like to me we have a worn out 350. We're going to go into some of the stuff on the block here in a minute. Cam's going to talk about that. What I wanted to do first, though, is I want to do due diligence on this and see if these are in fact the 202 heads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the dial caliper on here. Right on the edge of that valve. And we have a set of 194 valves in here, which that's the stock valve for a Chevy 350. And on the exhaust side, I mean, it's coming out to 147 with just a light measurement. That tells me it's a 150 exhaust valve. On a 202 head, it would have been a 202 valve here and a 160 here. Another real quick thing that you can see on this and know for sure is we have a couple of valves that are possibly burnt. We know that they are tan in color, which means that they were running really lean, and these two are burnt. We'll need to pull the valves out of here in order to check these two to make sure where they're at, but I would possibly, in a case like this, go in and put another set of valves in it just to be safe, and I would go ahead and replace them all and just get a full set of valves. This Chevy stuff, the prices are pretty reasonable on these parts. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out of the way so Cam can come in here and tell you about the rest of it. And by the way, the other head has the same problems on it. So far, everything that we have talked about as being a thing is not.
Yeah.
You've looked through the front of the oil pan where you see the mains.
Looks like 2 bolts.
Looks like 2 bolts.
Yep.
So the 2-bolt main block, the only thing this thing has is a mechanical cam, and probably they did that because it was just freaking cheap.
Yeah, and 4-speed fun with high RPM.
Yeah, RPM. This engine is cooked though.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing is just absolutely cooked. We've got, well, let's look at this first because it's easiest to see. We've got, if you see this on the top of a piston on a car that you're working on, what you have is pre-detonation in that particular cylinder. If you look at the cylinder head, it makes sense because the valves in those heads where they're white like that, you've got a ton of pre-detonation and nobody noticed it or did anything about it when it was running. Now we don't know if that's before Bill's brother got a hold of the engine or whatever. It doesn't matter because a lot of times you just, with loud exhaust and everything, you may not hear it pinging. And
especially with mechanical.
And mechanical cam, it's going to be really hard to discern. We've got some stuff in here as well.
You got ridges on pretty much all cylinders. Not horrible.
Some of them have got what I would call a ring ridge.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Low ring ridge.
This one's pretty rough. This cylinder wall, the piston's been scoring it. You can actually feel on your fingers where the piston's been hitting. So that one for sure needs to be bored. All of these holes basically need to be bored. None of them have crosshatch anymore.
Small block 400?
Yeah, it's going to be something. But
going to be something, but it ain't going to be a 350 anymore.
No.
I kind of want to roll, I mean, I do and I don't care at this point. I kind of want to roll it over. It's like that 1289 we got in from a buddy of ours, where, you know, you pull the heads off of it and you start really looking at the block and it's like...
Yeah. You're going to be more money into it than you could get one for. She's had a hard life.
She has had a hard life. I was really hoping for a lot more. I was hoping we had the 202 heads. Let's continue on with what we're doing here. We're going to roll this thing over, pull the pan on it, see if we've got 4-bolt mains, which we know we probably don't.
Yep. And correction of that, you don't own it yet. See if I make a mess. it magically went in the hole, in the pan. It's amazing. Right. Milky.
Pretty.
Yeah, that was the water line. Oh no, it is 4-bolt main.
Well, crap.
Hooray!
I like the doo-doo on the.
Yeah, so.
That's pretty. Yeah. What does it taste like?
Chocolate mousse.
Chocolate mousse. Well, it's a 4-bolt main block, so we have the if answered on the block.
Mm-hmm.
We have the cylinder heads that aren't worth a crap. I mean, they're not bad cylinder heads. They're just not the 202 heads. You do just as well if you're going to rebuild those. You'd probably spend just as much money buying a set of nice aluminum cylinder heads for it, and then throwing them into the 4-bolt main block.
Yep. Let's pop a cap off and see what the crank looks like.
All right, you get popping.
That's what, 3/4, I think. Oh, 5/8. All right, GM. Something right. Ooh. Yeah, no. That ain't good.
Is that copper I see from here?
Yeah. Copper or brass, whichever it is. But yeah, that's through it.
Is it going to need a crank too?
Yeah, crank needs to be polished. It's not horrible, but it ain't smooth. Catch your fingernail on the grooves.
Change your oil, people.
Yeah. Change your water.
Okay, the water's my fault.
Yeah, nobody's been into the crank before. It's not a bird out like you typically do.
So it's a normal grind on the crank. So you go 10-10 on the crank.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be looking at a couple $100 in machining there.
So, okay, so.
Yeah, no,
bad.
it's chewed. And there's only one. I'm pretty sure oil comes in the back down here, so I'm willing to bet that's the priority main or that's the priority main. So I'm willing to bet that one's even worse.
Or should we put that one back and crack one of the other ones just to take a look at it? Or,
Yeah,
well, it doesn't matter, but.
Nah, it's cooked. I mean, for science, we can pull that off. It's not going to change the outcome.
For Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Yeah.
So let's, just for grins,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we take that
Cap
off and see what we got there. That other one sounded loose. Did it not pop? Or was that your elbow?
That was my elbow crack.
Crack yet?
It's spreading, it's just tight. This side's not wanting to come out. I think it's actually touching the crankshaft. Come on. It said no.
What about tapping the top of the studs? Or is that...
You
could do just as much. You might take the stud all the way through, though.
Yeah. I'm going to push the piston out, and then we got to... let's try this one.
Put that one back together. Which one are you moving to?
Very front one.
Yes, folks, that was the extension or all of it?
That was just the socket.
So we lost the socket into the soup. His hands are dirtier than mine. I want to make him get it out.
Oh no, I'm not getting that out. I'm getting another socket.
You're going to make the poor old 61-year-old man.
No, I'll let Logan when he needs that drain pan for something of his.
That would be the worst one of the two anyway.
Yeah, it should be. Bet you these rods are splayed. Orange slap out and the bolts go. We got a little screwdriver over here.
Maybe
Actually,
a flat blade over there by the bell housing.
I have my $36 pocket pry bar.
Isn't that a flat blade screwdriver?
No, this is actually a pry bar.
Dude, it looks like a screwdriver.
But I paid money for it.
$36 apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Is it working though?
Yeah, well,
So
kind of.
it's a $36 pry bar that's actually prying. That's good. Huzzah. All right, so explain to me, or the guys out there, because we have a problem. What's the problem? You say the rod bolts are splayed. That
Yeah.
means what?
So when rods are used, the piston's pushing force down, and the top of it actually spreads out. So the bolts aren't straight anymore. They are
So that means we'd have to put rods in it too then.
just need to get them reconditioned.
Okay.
That normally fixes that,
Okay.
but pretty much have to hammer those out now. Yeah, fun.
Do we want to know that bad? I mean, we already know we got to do the crank.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't
at this
matter.
point.
I mean, at this point, okay, I'd rather not. I'd rather at that point we just start taking it apart.
Still have a spinnable engine.
Yeah, I mean, at this point we know that the bottom end on this thing's cooked.
Yep.
We've got a problem with all this. This oil pump's going to have to be replaced. Everything down here is going to have to be redone.
Yep.
And at least looked at. Rods are going to have to be reconditioned.
Crank will have to be polished at minimum. Probably,
Yes.
probably ground or cut.
Or replaced with a
Stroker. Yeah.
stroker crank, like 383 or 400 or something.
Yeah.
Of course, it's probably going to get 10 miles per gallon, so at that point, maybe we would do better to just get a 8.1.
Have way more torque on demand.
Right effing now. All right, well, I guess then, fine. You're going to talk me into calling time of death, and I'm going to have to get somebody to come in here and clean up my floor because you made a mess in here today, dude. Actually, we made a mess because I didn't think about it doing what it did.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it would have that much water.
That's a lot of water. I don't know how that got in there either. This thing's been under a car cover, so I don't understand that. I mean, we had it under a car cover that was supposedly water repellent, so I don't understand how.
Even just condensation will do it.
Yeah, but that's a lot of condensation, dude. That's a lot. It hadn't been in there.
We are in the South.
It hadn't been in there that long, though, because if you look at the block inside here, it's not.
There's not a lot of rust. Yeah.
There's none, really. I don't see.
It's because the oil was raised up.
Water
Water
onto
goes
the
to the bottom.
crank. That's true. So it was probably in water up to about maybe right here.
Yeah.
And the rest of it was just the oil because it puked on you whenever it went. Okay.
I'm not going to get that smell out of my boots for a while now.
You work on cars. What do you expect?
Yeah, but I got to drive with these in a truck that has no air conditioning.
It won't be Cletus feet funk.
Yeah.
It'll just be boots.
Yeah. Well, it's dead, Jim.
You get his wallet, I'll get his tricorder. Yeah, we're done. I don't see any reason to go any further other than we just knock this thing apart at some point here in the near, because
Block needs machining, crank needs machining.
that's it. I mean, when you go that far, you're done. You're just going to have to go and get
Heads
work
need
done.
machining.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's probably going to need to be some stuff done on those cylinder heads. And honestly, if I'm going to do that, again, I kind of talk about what we were talking about a little bit ago. If you're going to do this in a vehicle, unless somebody's looking to build a 350 that they want all the date codes to match, and even then it doesn't matter because the block is a service block that's a 69 block.
Yep.
I just don't, I mean, I don't know. Part of me is like, it's just a junked out 350 that's...
There's no value in this engine to that car.
Right, to that car. Now, there's a 4-bolt main block, which I guess that has value to some of the guys out there in the hobby. You know, so we would say, okay, it's got a 4-bolt main block, but the cylinder heads are 195, 150s.
It's a garden variety 350.
It's a garden variety 350 with a 4-bolt main block.
You can get in a junkyard.
You can get a junkyard. You can find them around. They're everywhere. I mean, even aftermarket, you could probably cheaper get a crate 350
absolutely.
built
Than you would have in time and money and machine charges. Yeah, you'd be way better off getting a crate at this point.
This thing's cooked. Luckily, we already have an engine that you're going to see some stuff on, like I said before, in a sidebar. That's a 383 that's going to go dropping off into this thing. But yeah, I mean, the only thing it has going for it is a baffled oil pan and 4-bolt mains. Everything else is pretty garden variety. So. And I guess with that, we're done for this week, folks. Do me a favor. Be kind to each other. Love on each other. Treat each other nice. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time on Autorestomod.
Is that baffling from a dent? Or is that actual baffling?
No, it actually has an oil baffle in it. It's baffling that it has a baffle.
Yeah.
Maybe all of them have it. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't pulled apart enough 350s to know whether that's the case or not. I've not done a ton of Chevy stuff, but just from general principles, we know, and I know from looking at it, that this thing's done.
Oh, yeah, she cooked.
I was hoping for so much more. Let's go get a beer.